Do you know the secret to turning writing into a chore? Of course you don't, that's why you clicked on this video. And don't you worry, because by the end of this video you are going to hate writing so much, you're going to feel like William Wallace after his rebellion was crushed by the English and he was hung, drawn and quartered. Okay, let's just calm down. Take a deep breath. I'm sorry if that was a very intense intro. The truth is, I am going to show you how to turn writing into a chore. However, you're not going to be an idiot and do those things. You're going to do the exact opposite. Because if you clicked on this video, I'm going to assume that you want to be a writer, and by extension, you don't want it to feel like a chore, right? You want it to feel fun. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how you can turn writing into a chore. And from there, you just have to do the opposite of what I tell you to do. Make sense? Good. Because the truth is, dear viewer, in my experience, it's often better to know what not to do than what to do. And all hilarity aside, I've never hated writing. But who am I, you might be asking yourself? Well, I am a writer. I have written over 666 articles on Medium. And no, I am not the devil. I have 27,000 plus followers. I've made thousands of dollars. I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and I've loved every single second of it. It's never felt like a chore to me. But I'm not gonna lie, there have been times where it has felt like I've been pulling teeth. Times when what I was writing felt forced and uninspired. I got bored of saying the same things over and over again, just in a slightly different way. Bored of being a slave to the algorithm. And really bored of turning something I love, writing, into nothing more than just a numbers game. If you feel like that right now, or if you feel like you're about to head down that path where writing isn't becoming fun anymore and it's starting to feel more like a chore, I'm going to save you a lot of pain in this video. To start off, let me take you back to when I first started writing on Medium. When I first decided to start writing online, I committed to writing and publishing every single day for an entire year. Did I do it? What do you think? Obviously I did it. I did actually do it. But what's interesting is that while I was doing it, it never felt like a grind. Whereas whenever people asked me what I was doing, and I'd tell them I was writing every day online, they'd look at me as if I was Hercules. What? How can you do that, bruv? And the answer is very simple. It just never felt like a grind to me. I found it fun. As strange as that might be to believe. But why was this the case? Well, dear viewer, it's because I wasn't doing it for anything. At the time, when I first started, I wasn't thinking about followers, I wasn't thinking about money, I wasn't thinking about a niche, I wasn't thinking about business, I was just writing, and I was vibing with it. Even though I was writing every day, I wasn't forcing myself to hit 1,000 words a day. Some days I'd write 300, sometimes when I was feeling myself, I'd write 3,000. There was no rigid quota. I had zero pressure and I could just do whatever I wanted. But after tasting my first piece of success, something changed. Somewhere around the 20,000 follower mark, I was suddenly engulfed by this enormous wave of pressure. The problem is, I'd gotten used to experiencing a consistent and incremental rise in my follower count and views, and my dopamine receptors absolutely loved that. As long as line went up, I was delighted. But as soon as that line came down and I had a bad month, alarm bells started ringing in my mind. Oh shit, I gotta do something. And just like that, something I loved doing had turned into more of a job. And this is the first thing you need to do if you want to make sure writing feels like a chore. You need to treat it exactly like a job. If you do that, you'll start hating it really quickly, which is kind of messed up considering you started it to try and feel free. At least that was the reason I started it. Although turning writing into a job is a great way to make it feel like a chore, it is not the only way, dear viewer. In fact, it's nowhere near as bad as the next fault on my list. If you commit this next sin, you won't only hate the act of writing, you'll also get 10 times worse at writing. And that's this: letting your readers decide whether you're good or not. And no, I did not come up with this one myself. In fact, this point was inspired by Sylvia Plath. Nowadays, she's considered a literary genius, but during the time when she was writing, she was actually a very insecure individual. Her entire self-worth was dictated by how others perceived her work. If she'd write something and no one thought it was good, she would fall down into a desperate downward spiral. All she cared about was other people's approval, validation, being appreciated, that her love for writing took a back seat. She didn't care about writing, she cared about what the writing would give her. But the problem is, even when she got what she wanted, what she thought she wanted, she was never satisfied, because in her mind, the people who were praising her work didn't really understand it. They'd be praising something that she didn't even intend to convey. In short, she was brilliant, but extremely fragile, and it was all because her identity was tied to how other people viewed her. My dear viewer, you do not want to experience this. Never let other people decide how valuable you are, or whether your work is worth making. That's just you signing up for a slow and torturous demise. But the next thing I'm gonna share, it won't only kill your joy for writing, it even led to the death of a writer. While Sylvia Plath tied her entire sense of self-worth to how other people validated her, David Foster Wallace tied his sense of self-worth to something that could never be attained: perfection. You may have heard the name David Foster Wallace before. He was a brilliant writer. Many would say he was a genius, but he was also tortured. He once said, "I probably write 10 pages for every one that I use." And that's not him being poetic, that's him being literal. He would write 10 pages and would only use one. He would write sentences and rewrite them thousands of times to try and make them perfect. But he was never satisfied. Not even after he wrote Infinite Jest, a 1,000+ page masterpiece. He still didn't think it was good enough. It didn't matter how much praise people heaped on him. It didn't matter how much money he made, because in his mind, it was never good enough. For context, Wallace suffered from depression for most of his life, and he was taking antidepressants for the majority of his life. So obviously the guy had issues. It wasn't all writing that was the problem. But make no mistake about it, his obsessive perfectionist tendencies magnified all of the bad areas in his life. After The Infinite Jest came out and it became a massive success, he started working immediately on his next book, The Pale King, but he couldn't finish it. Despite working on it for 10 years, he was paralyzed by his inner perfectionist. He wrote thousands of pages, but he killed himself before he could finish it. Now, I know this has taken a slightly dark turn, and I don't want you to be concerned. I just want to highlight just how toxic perfectionism can be. It's not something you should be proud of or flex on social media. Ooh, look at me, I'm such a perfectionist. Obviously, I'm not saying perfectionism itself killed David Foster Wallace. No, he obviously had issues, he had demons. However, perfectionism kills careers just as much as it does people. Do not flex this thing. It is not something to be proud of. It is something to be quashed. Because if you never feel like your work is enough, if you constantly rewrite and revise everything to death, and if you obsess over every flaw you make and just can't let anything go, writing will never feel like freedom to you. It will always feel like you're trapped inside a mental prison. But that's not the only trap that writers fall into. If perfectionism is one way to turn writing into a chore, then prioritizing profit is another. Sure, the weapon might be different, but who cares if you got stabbed by a knife or a spear? You're still bleeding to death. So let's talk about money. Look, mi amigo, if you want to make money writing, that's amazing. So do I. If you want to make a lot of money writing, even better. But there's something you need to understand. If everything you write is just for the cash, your soul will leave the page and end up in Satan's pocket. Just look at James Patterson. Jamie Boy turned the art of writing into a multi-million-dollar business empire. The problem is, he doesn't do any writing. In fact, you can't really call him a writer. Every book that's published under his name is written by a ghostwriter. He's published over 300 books, more than most people will ever read in their entire lifetimes, across loads of different genres. And he easily makes tens of millions of dollars every single year. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Godfrey, that sounds pretty cool. What's the issue? Well, the issue is, he makes a lot of money, but he doesn't make the same amount of money as J.K. Rowling, or Stephen King, or Quentin Tarantino, or the Beatles. And those people loved writing, and they loved the things they were writing. James Patterson's getting rich off slop. He's the equivalent of the people nowadays who are making all these faceless AI YouTube channels and are making quite a decent chunk of change from ad revenue. His content is rubbish. While David Foster Wallace literally killed himself trying to make the perfect book, James Patterson has the opposite approach. He doesn't care about perfectionism. He just wants to churn out as many books as possible and make as much money as possible. And let me be clear, it might sound like I'm demonizing the guy. I don't know who he is, right? I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just talking about how prioritizing profit can actually hinder your love for writing and eventually turn it into a chore. James Patterson loves his business, but I guarantee he doesn't love writing. Otherwise, he would do it. He wouldn't hire ghostwriters to do all the work for him. And if you in turn treat writing purely like a business, you will not like writing, but you'll love your business. That's a choice you have to make. Because remember, whenever writing becomes a job, it stops feeling like joy. There's nothing objectively wrong with churning out slop. There are people doing it with Amazon KDP all the time and they're making a lot of money. Do you want to be a businessman who's only in love with business? Or do you want to be a writer who's in love with the craft? Or do you want to combine the two together and become an entrepreneurial writer, one who loves the craft and loves the content? It's up to you. So, we've covered self-work, perfectionism, and profit. But now we have to talk about a different trap. One that sounds innocent on the face of it, but it's killed more writing careers than all of the others combined. What is it, you ask? Waiting. Doesn't matter whether it's waiting for inspiration, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the pizza to arrive. Waiting is just bad news. Waiting and writing do not go together at all. Because waiting is the classic sign of an amateur. Professionals do not wait. Professionals know that there is no such thing as the perfect moment. Professionals just get going. It doesn't matter how they're feeling. If they wake up feeling sleep deprived, sick, they're still going to sit down and they're going to write. Amateurs are not going to do that. Amateurs are going to wait for the next day. They're going to wait until they feel better and they're eventually going to do nothing. And I hate to break it to you, dear viewer, but if you're still waiting to start writing, you're in trouble. As I said earlier, amateurs love waiting more than anything. They wait for the right feeling, they wait for the right weather forecast, they wait until the sun is hitting their desk at the perfect angle for them to start writing. I'm telling you, this is how decades can just fly by and you haven't created anything. A famous example of this is Harper Lee. You may know that name. She wrote To Kill a Mockingbird all those years ago. She wrote it in 1960. In 1961, she won the Pulitzer Prize. The book was hailed as a classic, one of the greatest American novels ever written. She's made $4 million every single year just from royalties, and yet it was the only book she ever published. Why? Because she kept waiting for the right time to write the next one. But that time never came. Whether it was because of pressure, perfectionism, or other people's expectations, we don't know. In her own words, she said, "When I'm inspired, I can write, and not before." But the harsh reality is, dear viewer, you cannot wait for inspiration. You have to just sit down and write. This is what pros do. They don't wait. They get moving. They act. And once they begin to move in the right direction, the muse shows herself. And that's when creating becomes easy. Because all we have to do is just let her cook. And oftentimes, she cooks up a masterpiece. But this raises another problem. Because once you do sit down to start right, there's another sneaky trap you need to watch out for. And if you fall into this trap, not even your glorious muse will be able to save you. And that's this: writing about something you do not care about. Because, listen, let me be frank with you. If you don't care about what you're writing, dear viewer, why should I? I don't care how popular the topic is. If you're not fascinated by it, don't write about it. If it doesn't move you, don't expect it to move anyone else. Write things that excite you, confuse you, inspire you. Anything less is a waste of you and your readers' valuable time. Stop trying to ride someone else's wave. There's plenty of surf for everyone, man. And after you get your surfboard and you're in the water, you've got two choices. Either surf like Blair Hamilton or drown. And that neatly leads me into my next point. No one thinks surfers have to drown in order to be amazing at surfing, right? So why do so many people believe you need to suffer in order to make great art? Well, long story short, you don't. It's a psyop. My friend, let me make this perfectly clear to you. Crystal meth clear. Heisenberg level clarity. You do not have to suffer to be a great writer. That's a lie that's been made up. A myth. A fairy tale miserable people make up to justify their own misery. Look at Paul McCartney. The man is 82 years old. He's a billionaire, and yet he still performs live. He still goes on world tours. He still records albums. Tell me, do you think that man's suffering? He was set for life after the Beatles. He could have retired when he was 26 years old, and yet he's still going. Why? Because he loves it. He's not suffering, because if he was, he'd stop doing it. The fact that he hasn't shows that he absolutely loves the entire process of making art. And he's not the only one. Tyler the Creator is another example. Christopher Nolan is another. Hayao Miyazaki, David Bowie, Stephen King. There is an endless list of examples of people, artists, who loved the craft, who loved the art they were making, who loved every single second of the creative process and never suffered. The starving artist trope is BS, and I want you to just take it out of your mind. You know that thing in Harry Potter where Dumbledore sticks the wand and he's like, rah, 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 and he rips something out and sticks it in the little vase? I want you to do that with this starving artist, like this suffering artist myth. Because if you don't, you're gonna really hate writing and it's gonna really feel like a chore. I've got a few more points, but I think that's enough for you to chew on at the moment. Click the first link in the description if you want to get my magnetic writing free email course. You'll learn how to become a master persuader and dominate the psychology behind writing. Click the second link in the description if you're serious about becoming a digital writer in 2025. You want to build an audience online, you want to create a writing brand, and you actually want to make money with your beautiful ideas. And if you like this video, I think you'll like this next one, where I'll show you how to become a top 1% writer in 6 to 12 months. I will see you there. Bye-bye.